Hey guys, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a waistband and also a custom pocket from a basic trouser block. So obviously with this basic trouser block there is no waistband, there is no pocket, there is actually nothing on this block apart from just simply the fit and block itself. Now to do this you can do this one of two ways. So we're doing this in Adobe Illustrator. You could also do this manually paper pattern cutting just by simply following similar steps. However, I'm going to show you how to do this in Adobe Illustrator using one of our digital downloadable let's say basic trouser blocks. You have got two options here. So you can either go to the designlab.london website, and then if you scroll down you will see we have a whole range of different trouser blocks. This is the basic high waist trouser block relaxed fit with no pockets or anything. If you simply click on this, you can then obviously purchase that pack, and it comes in UK 4 all the way up to 24, and it will allow you to simply, and obviously this is a fully editable digital pattern which you can then edit in Adobe Illustrator, and this is all based on UK standard sizes UK 4 to 24. However, if you'd like to create something that is more bespoke, in other words it fits your measurements perfectly or accurately, simply head on over to the patternlab.london website, which is the sister site, and just simply scroll down and click on the new made to measure basic trouser block. And you can obviously start drafting this. We have jeans as well. You can either select a standard size from our range of standard sizes here, or you can basically choose a profile or create your own profile. So click on the profile tab, you can then create new and just simply go, let's say test. Let's go for Pattern Lab. And then you can then start to add your measurements. We also have a handy tab here. If you click trousers, it will show you all the measurements that you need to draft that block. So once you've edited or added your measurements, you can then obviously you can then go through, let's say the Pattern Lab, and obviously start to create your block using that profile. So really handy. But anyway, I'm going to be using the Design Lab block, just because it is simple and it's ready. We don't actually have to create a profile or create a made to measure block. It is just simply the standard sizes. And I've actually already, let's say, downloaded this pack. So once you bought it, you can then download it to your computer. And as you can see here, we've just unzipped it, and this is the, let's say, folder structure. I'm going to go to Editable Patterns, then we're going to Adobe Illustrator Format, and I'm going to pick a UK size 10. And this is our block, which is fully editable. And when I say that, what I mean is you can literally edit any part of this block. It's important to say that this is an intermediate tutorial in Adobe Illustrator, or for pattern cutting in Adobe Illustrator. We have a whole wealth of tutorials on digital pattern cutting. Just simply go to the patternlab.london website, go to courses, pattern making, and then as you can see we have a whole list of completely free tutorials that show you the basics of digital pattern cutting in Adobe Illustrator. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, so once you have basically opened your, let's say, basic trouser block in Adobe Illustrator, first of all, we're just going to give us a little bit of space. I'm going to go to the artboards. So I'm going to go Option, Command, and P on my keyboard, which should bring up the Edit Artboard function. I'm simply going to drag this out and also drag it out this way as well, just give us a little bit more space to work on. There we go. Great stuff. And then just basically go to your Big Section tool to close that artboard. And let's just simply get our Big Section tool. I'm just going to click and drag this over to the left hand side. Once again, if you're not familiar with digital pattern cutting in Adobe Illustrator, then please watch our video tutorials. They will show you everything you need to know when it comes to all of the various tools on the left hand side and the right hand side here. Okay, also just very quickly, hold down the space key on your keyboard and you can click and drag and move around this page. You can also use the command, so the key on your keyboard, Command and plus, and that will allow you to zoom in, and minus on your keyboard, holding down the Command key, will allow you to zoom out. So let's just zoom in a little bit. Okay, so first of all, let's create a waistband. Let's just move this up a little bit. So I'm going to get my small selection tool. I'm just going to simply click on this outline pattern here, and I'm going to get my scissor tool, which is just over here on the left, or you can use the C on your keyboard, which will bring up the scissor tool. I'm simply going to snip these very far end points. Let's just zoom in so you can see that. I'm just going to snip on this corner point here, 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 and also on the front as well. We're going to start creating this waistband. I'm then going to get my small selection tool. I'm going to select this line, hold down the shift key to select the other lines or to queue them up. I'm just going to go to Object and then Path and then Offset Path. And here we're going to choose a waistband depth. Now I'm going to go for 5 centimeters just to create quite a large waistband here. I'm just going to click OK. As you can see, what's happened is we have then paralleled a line 5 centimeters away from that existing line. We've actually done it on both sides, but we don't need this top edge. We just want the bottom edge. So I'm now going to get my scissor tool. Let's just zoom in. I'm going to snip that corner point. Oh, make sure you actually have this selected first. And then going to snip that corner point, this one, this one, this one, and this one. This is just simply removing those bottom lines from the other selection. So you get a small selection tool, click and drag over these elements here, hit backspace a few times, and that will basically provide us with just those lines. Do exactly the same for the front. I'm going to go to my scissor tool, I'm going to snip here and snip here. Small selection tool, click and drag, and then hit backspace a few times. I'm then going to get my small selection tool, click on this little endpoint and drag this out. I'm going to click and drag this out so it extends past the outline or outside of the block. Same for these ones. I want to try and keep it, make sure it's in line. Let's get our small selection tool, click and drag. Once again here, click and drag. Perfect. Okay, so once all those lines are extending outside your block, we're then going to get our small selection tool. You can hit A on your keyboard to bring up the small selection tool. I'm going to select this line, hold down the shift key, select this line, and also this line. I'm then going to go object and then expand. Now this will turn these lines into an object which will allow you to use them to cut away from the existing pattern. I'm going to show you that in a second. But first of all, let's get our small selection tool. At the moment, this block is completely separate. It's all in pieces, which is going to be a problem if we're going to snip it using these lines. So I'm going to get my small selection tool, click and drag over this end, these two endpoints here. I'm going to right click and then click join. I'm going to do this all the way along. So I'm just going to be clicking and dragging, right clicking and then joining. Click and drag, right click, join. Click and drag, right click, join. Oop, not average. Click and drag, right click, join. And finally, let's just join that. Do exactly the same on the front. Join, right click, join. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my big selection tool. I'm going to click on this element here. You can see that everything is grouped at the moment. So let's just click on both. So big selection tool. I'm going to click on this pattern here. Get my small, hold down the shift key. Click on this pattern. I'm going to go to object and then ungroup. Now you can see there is a shortcut here which is shift, option, and then G. So I'm just going to do that as well. So shift, command, and then G. And that will ungroup. I'm going to do that a few times. So hit shift, command, and G a few times to ungroup it completely. So as you can see, these are all separate elements now, which is great. Get in my big section tool, click on this element, hold down the shift key, click on this element, and this element. I'm then going to go to object and then expand. Let's do that again, object and then expand. Okay, we've actually already done that, apologies. So that's great. So these lines are now expanded into actual objects. If I click and drag, you can see it's an object, no longer a line. I'm then going to grab my big section tool, click on this outline of the pattern. I'm then going to click on this one, and this one. I'm then going to go to my Pathfinder tool on the right here. And if you can't find that, go to Window and then Pathfinder. And I'm going to go to minus front, and that didn't work. And the reason why is because these lines need to be on top of the pattern in the layers. They need to be on top of this one in the layers. So I'm just going to select all three of these lines again. Object, arrange, and then bring to front. Now let's try that again. So select all of these elements, including this one, and then we're going to go minus front. And as you can see, it worked. So now this one's completely separate. So we're just using that line to snip our block. Do the same for the front. I'm going to select this line, I'm going to go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. Click and drag over these two elements, and then I'm going to use the Pathfinder minus front tool. Also what I'm going to do is, let's just get rid of that line there. Let's select this line. I'm going to get my snip tool. I'm just going to snip. Let's zoom in a little bit. I'm going to snip this line as well, just so we can take that with us when we separate off the waistband. So I'm going to get my big section tool, click and drag, and at the moment it's still grouped, so let's go to Object and then ungroup again, click and drag. We can move this up, and then let's Object and then group this piece so that when we move it, nothing's going to get left behind, which is good. Same for these ones. I'm going to get this line here, and I'm just going to simply snip it. Let's scroll up. Just going to snip it just at that point. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit. I'm just going to snip it at that point there. Zoom out. I'm then going to get my big section tool, select all these and go Object and then ungroup. Select these two together and then go Object and then group. There we go. And then my big section tool, I can then simply click and move these around. So at the moment, we've got a back waistband panel that's in pieces, which is a bit annoying. So with my big section tool, click on this point here, move it to that point, go to my rotation tool, click on that point to rotate, and then click and drag that in until those lines meet. Same with this one. Click and drag on that point, move it off to the opposite, let's say the other part of that waistband, get my rotation tool, click, and then click and drag to move that into position. Now before I actually join these, so I'm going to eventually do this and join them all together, but before I actually do that, I want to make sure that I retain these markings where this panel meets this panel. So I'm going to get my line tool, I'm just going to click and drag to create a little notch. It's a bit ugly at the moment, but I can clean these up a little bit later. It's just to mark those points. So just click and drag, trying to follow through that line if you can. And next what I'm going to do is get my small selection tool, click and drag both of these, and then let's just go to unite. Now for some reason it's not uniting, that's not a problem, it just means that they're not really overlapping or meeting. So to do that, get your plus anchor point tool, click on that line, get your small selection tool, and then click and drag that over so that now these two panels are overlapping. With small selection tool, click and drag both, and then unite. And as you can see, we have a lovely back panel which is completely one item. Get your big selection tool, click and drag over the whole element, go to object and then group, so that obviously the notches when we move it come with us. And then finally what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my rotation tool, click on this point here, and I'm just going to rotate that until it's vertical because this is going to be our grain line. There we go, so it's nice and vertical, which is great. I'm going to leave those notches for a little bit later on. So this is how we create a separate waistband for our trouser panel, which is fantastic. Now this means we can now actually start to create a pocket panel. Yeah, we can create a pocket using this trouser panel just here. And it's basically going to sit in the waistband. So to do this, it's really, really very simple. And you can customize it as much as you like. First of all, I'm just going to grab this because it's kind of in the way. So I'm going to get my big selection tool, going to select all these elements. Let's just group it and let's move it down over here. We can also get rid of this hip line and this body rise line just simply by getting this small selection tool, clicking on it and then hitting backspace a few times. Okay, so let's create a pocket. Now I'm going to eyeball this, but you can also measure this. So if you get your ellipse tool and you just click and then you go 0.5 cm and then 0.5 cm, click OK. We've then created a point. Now we can actually click and drag. So we've got a big selection tool and click and drag this onto this edge or this corner point. We can then, with it selected, hit the enter key, and here we can go, right, well I want it to be minus 6 cm, let's say off to the left. Let's hit copy. And if I click the R on my keyboard, which brings up the rotation tool, I can click on this point and then rotate it. And I know for a fact that that is 6 centimeters away from that side seam. So we've just defined, in fact, you know what, I'm on pixels. So let's just hit Command R will basically bring up your rulers. So Command R on your keyboard brings up your rulers. I'm just going to double click, well sorry, right click and change that to centimeters. You can do the same for inches if you like. Let's get rid of that guideline. So now let's just do that again. I'm going to hit my points. I'm going to hit the backspace, sorry, the enter key on my keyboard, and here I can put minus 6. And see, now we're working in centimeters because we changed the rulers. I'm just going to hit copy. And then I'm going to go to my rotation tool. I'm going to click on the center of that and rotate it to that top edge. And once again, this is now definitely 6 centimeters away from that edge. And we can also go down. We can go, okay, let's go, let's say 15 centimeters down. Hit copy, go to the rotation tool, click on that point, rotate this out. And this can define a pocket which is 6 by 15. You can also eyeball it. So for example, like with my pen tool, I can say, well, actually I want my pocket to be about here and about here, and we're going to have it like quite a deep curve. You know, it's completely up to you how you want to do this. But once again, because we have these points, I can just simply click, and then drag. So clicking, don't release your mouse and just drag, and you can create whatever pocket you want, make it as mad as you like. Obviously that might not be very functional, but still. So let's just create our pocket. But you know what, I don't like those dimensions, so I'm just going to get rid of these points and I'm going to eyeball it. So I'm going to get my pen tool, I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click about here, and I'm just going to create that lovely deep scoop pocket. Great stuff. And you can see I've actually gone over, I've overlapped this outside of this pattern, and that's because I'm going to use this line to cut as we did with the waistband. So let's just get rid of this point. So big selection tool, select that point, backspace. Okay, so I'm going to click on this line with my big selection tool. This is also V on your keyboard. So A is the small selection tool and V is the big selection tool. I'm going to go to object and then expand, click OK. And now I'm going to select this panel. I'm going to select this panel. Get my big selection tool, select this panel, go object and then arrange, bring to front. I'm going to make sure it's on top. Click and drag and select both of these. Go to my pathfinder and then minus from front. And as you can see, we now have our new pocket. That's great. So this is perfect. We've got our new pocket, but now we need to basically create the pocket bag, the pocket facing, and all the other elements that go with this pocket. And to do that, I'm going to get my big selection tool. I'm going to click and drag over the whole of this trouser panel. I'm just going to go Command C to copy it and Command V to paste a new one. Oops, hang on, let's do that again. So I'm just going to paste a brand new one in. So kind of like using it as a template. It's like tracing around the outside of it. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to make 2 of these, okay, because we're going to need both of them. Great stuff. So next what I'm going to do is, without touching this one, I'm going to define my pocket, let's say bag. So I'm going to pen tool just here, and I'm going to click just about, I don't know, let's zoom in. My pocket bag is going to finish here. It's going to go all the way down a little bit past the crotch length, and it's going to go slightly up towards the body rise. There we go. We can also, if you get your small selection tool, we can move this point around as well. If you hold down the shift key, it'll lock it to the vertical. And then I'm just going to click on this little point here, and you can see we have this little rounded sort of like circle. And if I click and drag that, it allows you to create a nice curve to that pocket edge. So I'm just going to select this line, my small selection tool, go to my eyedropper tool, and I'm going to click on this dash line. So that basically gives us a guide of where our pocket's going to be, which is looking fantastic. So next what I want to do is, in fact, you know what I should have done? I should have actually, let's remove that. I should create the pocket first, and then copied and pasted it in, so then I have that template here and I don't have to try and paste it across. It's in the correct location. So now what we're going to do is, and you know what? I've done this a few times and I should know this. I'm not going to do that, sorry. So once we've drawn our pocket in, we've copied and pasted this section across, we've then drawn our pocket. I'm then going to get my small selection tool, select this trouser pattern. I'm going to go to my scissor tool. I'm going to snip it exactly where that pocket is, both there and there. I'm then going to get my small selection tool, select the other. See how we've snipped it away? I'm just going to simply backspace and get rid of the trousers. And let's also do the same here. Because we don't actually need the trousers, we just need that pocket area. We can also get rid of this line as well. This one, small selection tool, I'm going to click on the line, then click on the point and drag it over, hold down the shift key to lock it to the horizontal. Same with this one, because it'd be good to have our guidelines in there, I think. Let's get rid of, oops, sorry. Let's just select this point, hit backspace a few times. Okay, so now we have our pocket. And I'm just going to simply, small selection tool, click and drag over this corner point, right click join. Do the same here as well. Click and drag, right click join. And we can then, there's our pocket. So now I'm going to get my big selection tool, click and drag over the whole element. Just move this over. I'm going to copy and paste it. I'm going to do this 3 times. Okay. Because we're going to need a pocket bag, a pocket facing, and we're going to need a pocket bag facing. So first of all, let's create our pocket bag. Now this should be pretty simple. The pocket bag is essentially this whole item here. Okay. So it's not, let's say, this little piece or this piece. It is the whole item altogether. And I'll show you how these all go together at the end of this tutorial. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I want to keep this line just so it shows us, let's say, where that pocket's going to be, or where it's going to be located on this pocket bag. So I'm going to get my small selection tool, click on this element here, get my cut tool just here. I'm going to snip that bottom edge, snip that bottom edge. And you can see that this line has been selected. I'm then going to go object and then lock that selection so we can't actually touch it. And next what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply, small selection tool, grab this piece. I'm going to click on that point and drag it into the other panel. I'm going to do this all the way around with all of these bits. Okay. I'm then going to get my small selection tool, click and drag over both of these elements here. I'm going to get my unite tool, pathfinder, and I'm going to unite. And that's okay, we have this section in the middle, that's not a problem. I'm just going to simply click on this and then delete it. So now what we have done is basically created one panel out of those 2 panels, but we've also retained that line of where the pocket, let's say the pocket will be located. So it's just a guideline. So I'm going to get my small selection tool, go to my eyedropper tool, and then simply click on the guideline. And this is now our pocket bag. I'm then going to get my big section tool, click and drag over the whole element and go object and then group, so that it can be moved around. We're not going to lose any pieces, which is great. Okay, so next let's work on our pocket facing. Now this is very, very simple. All I'm going to do is simply grab this panel here, so small selection tool, click and drag, and hit backspace a few times. This will now be our pocket facing, and I'm going to show you what that means and how it goes together a little bit later on. Next we're going to create our pocket bag facing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the distance between this point, and to do that I'm going to get my line tool. I'm going to click and drag from that point, and you can see we get a little grey box and it says 3.95 centimeters, which is perfect. So I'm now going to get my small selection tool, click on this panel here, get my scissor tool, and then snip, and then snip. And then with this line selected, okay, so at the moment we've selected the other panel, that's fine. Let's just go object and then lock that selection, because we don't want to edit that or play with it. We just want this line that we've snipped away from this panel. Then we're going to go object, and then we're going to go to path, offset path, and I believe this was 3.94. So I'm just going to make it 3. So I'm going to offset it by 3 centimeters. So you can see that this, let's say, pocket bag facing is going to overlap into the pocket by about 3 centimeters. I'm going to get my scissor tool, and I'm going to, let's just zoom in here. I'm going to snip just where it meets that top edge. And okay, it doesn't meet the side seam, but that's fine. I'm just going to snip at this corner point anyway. Going to get my small selection tool. I'm just going to click on this and then hit backspace a few times. I'm then going to get my pen tool, which is just here. I'm just going to extend this out to about here, get my small selection tool, then click and drag this in until it meets the side seam. I'm then going to go Object and then Unlock All, which means I can edit this panel once again. And I'm just simply going to snip here and here and here and here. And then with my small selection tool, I'm going to select this panel and then just hit backspace. I can also get rid of this line down here because we don't need it anymore. And I'm going to get my small selection tool, click on this end point and drag it in. Hold down the shift key so it locks the horizontal. There we go, perfect. And then now what I'm going to do is, we only need one of these lines. So I'm just going to hit backspace a few times. I'm going to grab this line, I'm going to Object and then lock it, selection. And then I'm going to get my small selection tool, I'm going to click and drag over these 2 points, because at the moment we've got lots of different lines here, it's not all one piece. So I'm going to click and drag over these 2 points, right click, join, click and drag, right click, join. Same here as well, right click, join, click and drag, right click, join. So now we have one complete panel, which is great. Let's go Object, Unlock All. I'm then going to select this line with my small selection tool, go to my eyedropper tool and then select the guideline attributes. Then get my big section tool, click and drag over the whole element and go Object and then group it. And so now, as you can see, we have 3 completely different panel pieces and these all go to form your pocket. But also, this piece is now redundant. So let's go to our small selection tool. I'm just going to click on this panel here and then hit backspace. We can even grab this line, click and drag that in, delete this point. So now this is pretty much our finished pocket, obviously without seam allowance, but this is our finished pocket. I'm going to show you how these go together. So if you imagine this is your cotton pocket bag, this is then made out of the fabric that the trouser's made from. So let's say the trousers are green, and this is green, and this would be your cotton white pocket bag, for example. We then simply, when we actually sew this up, we would place this green panel on top of our pocket bag, and you see how it overlaps by 2 centimeters? Well, that means that when we actually place this pocket together, you're not going to see white fabric just where these 2 join. It's going to go inside the pocket. So that's why we have a pocket bag facing. So once again, this is the pocket bag. This is the facing of the green material that goes on top of it. And then this is just simply our white pocket, front pocket facing or pocket bag facing. So for example, this would then stitch together like this. And then this would then stitch to our trouser panel along this edge. We'd then flip it to the inside. And then you'd simply stitch these together along this line here, creating a complete pocket. So that is how we create a pocket using those 3 different panel pieces and obviously using that pocket template to create them. So they all match absolutely perfectly. So there's one last thing to do now, just to finish this off. And I'm just going to add some seam allowance and also some notches as well. Oops, what happened there? Okay. My computer's freezing a little bit. Just give it a moment. It's a little bit hot today, so it might just be struggling a little bit. Let's get rid of that, and also let's just close this down just to save on a bit of space. Don't save. Okay, it's a little bit glitchy, but we should be okay. Alright, so now I'm going to add some seam allowance. So to do that, I'm going to get my small selection tool. I'm going to click on the outline of all of these pattern pieces. Sorry if this is slow. And same with this one here. And then going to go to Object, Path, Offset Path, and we're going to go to 1 centimeter. So you can define how much seam allowance you want here. I'm going to use 1 centimeter and click OK. I'm also then going to go to my stroke width and make this 2 point. Perfect. And now we can basically arrange these. So let's just, because obviously these 2 are overlapping, let's just move that up ever so slightly. This one can be moved up ever so slightly as well. I think these ones should be okay. Yeah, they look like they are. And so now we can add some notches as well, just to make sure all of our pattern pieces will match up. So to add some notches, obviously these ones already exist. Let's get our small selection tool. I'm going to click on these, hold down the shift key to cue the selection up. Let's go to our eyedropper tool. Let's make them the same thickness as our seam allowance. I'm just going to click and drag that in to make it nice and neat. Same with this one, click and drag it in, click and drag it in. And if you want to, you can also add these here. I wouldn't necessarily because it's very clear where that dart is, but you can do that if you like. So let's just remove that. And then here as well, we're going to add, get your line tool, just click and drag. Same here, just where these 2 meet up. And then for the pockets, we can do the same. Click and drag. Finally, let's do this one as well. But then once again, see if I move this away, we're going to lose our notch. So just make sure you get big section tool, click and drag over all of that, and then go object and then group. And there's a shortcut here which is basically Command and G. So I'm going to do that for the rest. So click and drag and then Command G to group. Click and drag, Command G to group. We've actually missed one here. So let's put in a notch. Let's just click and drag, Command G to group. Let's zoom out a little bit. Once again, click and drag over this whole item here, and then Command G to click to group them all together. You want to make sure you get all of your pieces in. And same for this one as well, group. And actually for the center back panel, we probably don't want to have a seam on the center back of the waistband. So what I'm going to do is get my small section tool, I'm just going to click and then drag that in, holding down the shift key to lock it to the horizontal. There we go. You could even make this really fancy by snipping these two bits here. Let's also snip and get rid of that inside line. Get rid of that. Click on this line here. We can make this 1 point and we can give it a little dashed line, and we can call this 30 point and 10 point, and that'll give us a fold line. And I'm not going to add labels to all this because obviously we're running out of time a little bit. But obviously you would simply copy and paste these onto the separate panels and name them accordingly. So that is how you create a waistband and a custom pocket using the basic trouser block, which you can either find on our designlab.london website, which is all available in UK standard sizes, UK 4 to 24, or you can go to patternlab.london and create a truly bespoke, custom fitting, made to measure trouser block to fit your unique measurements. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. We've got a few more coming up when it comes to the trouser block, so please stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and obviously make sure your notifications are turned on so you don't miss any future tutorials. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time, guys.